Chapter 24 Rimiru's Subordinates. Back in Tempness, a massive clash of power was happening in the isolated field where Rimiru and his subordinates were fighting Hinata and the Paladins. The goblins were almost done dealing with the Paladin soldiers. It's not that the Paladins are weak, it's just that the goblins have a unique skill that revives them and heals them when they die. The skill is the unique skill Immortality, which they received when they were brought back to life after Rimiru became a true demon lord. Now the main focus of the fight was between Bimaru, Shinon, and Soye. With Shinon, Paladin Knights were led by Renard and Garda were prepared to engage in a fight of their life. They never imagined that they would have to face such calamity in their life. The calamity before them was overwhelmingly strong and defied all reasoning. When Rangard and his charge first arrived inside the Jura forest, there was very little magical in the air. This made Renard doubt the resurrection of the storm dragon Valdora and the ascension of Demon Lord Rimiru. That gave him enough proof to believe that the words of the 7 Days clergy who told that Hinata was working with Demon Lord Rimiru. He wanted to be the one to eradicate the monster nation and their evil leader. So he called Garda and assembled a group of Paladin Knights and rushed into the Jura forest. He was so confident about their victory that he charged recklessly into the forest. Oh, how wrong and foolish he was. The confidence left him after the knights were ambushed by goblins. The knights were giving it their all, but the goblins will not die no matter how much they cut them down. Burning, cutting, electrocuting, sealing, etc. Nothing was working on the goblins. Down, and before he knew it, half of his men had been killed. The goblins were a huge problem, but not compared to the 4 beings he saw standing on a cliff, watching what was happening. Renard has never in his life seen power like this, like the one those 4 beings possessed. The one in the blue hair glanced at them like they were ants. Renard was terrified, and his soldiers were even more so. Some of them even passed out from the aura that was pouring out from those 4 beings. Renard saw that Hinata approached the area and prepared to engage the being with silver blue hair, whom he learned was Demon Lord Rimiru. And it was now his troubles began. Currently, he wanted to cry and run away from this place. The reason is because one of the beings on the cliff is standing right before them. He was a fool to believe that they could win a fight with this kind of monsters. The being standing before him was a female Oni with a single horn on her forehead. She was dressed in a skin-tight suit, holding a big sword over her shoulder. Renard had already given the orders to set up a powerful anti-monster barrier to the 4 paladins still with him, but that was very useless. It's not the barrier that was not working on the female Oni, it's just that her powers were too massive to be contained by the measly barrier. The paladins have already summoned their spiritual armor, which was the ultimate form of protection for the paladins, when they realized that the being before them was dangerous. Finally, the female Oni spoke to them. My name is Shinon, the first secretary of Demon Lord Rimiru. I have been ordered by my lord to pass this message on to you. Surrender or death. If you people don't drop your weapons right now, I will not hesitate to cut you all down. Surrender and live, defy us and die where you stand. Renard, being the leader of this group, would like nothing more to surrender, but the pride of Luminous would not allow him to cower in the face of his foe. So he made his choice. I will never surrender to monsters. We would rather die with our pride than to cower in the face of danger. You may be a god, but not even the likes of you is enough to take us all down," he shouted at her. She only gave a small smile at that response. "Very well said, and my respect for you has increased. I will respond to your will in kind and make sure that all of you meet a quick death before your for your bravery. Rejoice, for you get to die by my hands of the first secretary of Demon Lord Rimiru." Garda, who heard her arrogant speech, got pissed. "Do you believe that you can win? We have surrounded you in the anti-monster barrier, and we have our ultimate protection. What can you do when you can barely move your body? We will show you no mercy. Prepare to die, monster." After Garda had said that, he brought his red spear and rushed Shinon, who was still standing, and prepared to pierce her with his crimson spear. "No, stop, Garda!" Renard tried to warn him, but it was too late. Garda reached Shinon in a blink of an eye by human standard, and thrust his spear directly to her heart. But to Shinon, his movement was too slow and easy to dodge. Shinon saw the red spear coming to her heart, but instead of dodging it, she caught it with her left palms. Garda, who saw that his spear had been caught with ease, became very worried. Before he could think of what to do next, he saw a big sword coming to the midsection of his stomach. He couldn't do anything, but he watched the sword approach his stomach. Shinon, after catching the spear in her left hand, used her right hand to swing her sword at Garda with a great speed. Her sword connected with Garda's midsection, and continued till Garda was severed into the force behind her, sent the two halves of Garda's body flying into the air before they were hit the ground, leaving a huge trail of blood. Renard, who watched as Garda was killed with such ease, became very angry. You evil beast! Everyone prepare and launch the holy cannon barrage," he shouted. The paladins began to fire bolts of holy energy from all around at Shinon, but she just deflected them with ease using her sword. She was not only deflecting the blast of holy energy, but also absorbing them into her sword, which was glowing in power. She stopped absorbing the energy and swinging her sword to one of the paladins who was maintaining the barrier. The paladin didn't even see the attack coming before her was cut in half from his head down. This continued for a while until the battlefield became quiet. Renard was very shocked. This monster was not only taking their holy cannon like it was nothing, but was also absorbing them, firing them back to our foes. This was impossible because it requires precision at a level of a single point in time, and this monster was pulling it off without breaking a sweat. He didn't imagine that any attack can go through the holy field and reach them. This was beyond common sense. Renard turned around, and to his shock, all the paladins with him were dead. They were all cut down by the attack just now. He was now alone with this monster. He heard footsteps coming to him. He hurriedly turned and saw Shinon with her sword on her shoulder approaching him without a care in the world. Renard jumped back and kept some distance between himself and Shinon. "Stay back, you monster!" Shinon stopped and gave him a look that conveyed how insignificant he was to her. "Do you really see the difference between us? You should have heeded my warning and surrendered." Your men would not have died a needless death if you only listened. Now look at you, alone and scared, with no one to back you up. Now I will ask you again, will you surrender?" Renard bit his lip with rage and sorrow for his fallen comrades. "I would rather die than surrender to you. I swear I avenge my brethren." He brought out his sword and began to charge with holy light energy. This was his special move, the power that earned him the title of Paladin of Light. It consists of him channeling a massive amount of holy energy mixed with his own spirit energy into his blade. The mixture of the two energy will destroy any kind of monster that, if it make contact. It doesn't matter what kind of defense that the monster may have. Once you are targeted, this move will bypass all defense till it makes contact with a target. Renard, after he was done charging his weapon, took a huge leap and rushed to Shinon with his very bright blade. Shinon, who saw the attack coming, instinctively knew that she could not block it. She brought her sword and stood her ground as she waited for Renard to attack her. Renard reached Shinon in mere moments. "Take this divine thrust!" He thrusted his sword at Shinon with great speed. The sword released a light energy attack that headed to Shinon with such great speed but the impossible happened. Right before Renard's eyes, he saw Shinon cut through the light attack that is said to bypass any defense. She not only cut it, but the attack vanished from sight after it was cut. He was confused on what happened exactly, which is why he didn't see Shinon was in front of him right now. Shinon, after she cut through the light attack, rushed at Shenard, who was still distracted. She swung her blade to his stomach with great force. Renard, who saw Shinon's attack too late, brought his sword to try and block Shinon's, but it was futile. Shinon's sword didn't even hesitate to cut through both Renard and his stomach. The force she put into the swing sent Renard flying back until his back hit a tree, and he slid down with a huge gash wound on his stomach. Renard weakly looked at Shinon, who was approaching him. "How did you block my attack?" Shinon stood in front of him and looked down at him. "Since you already are at death's door, I guess I could tell you. I possess a unique skill that allows me to override and change anything I cut to the desired outcome I visualized. I use that skill to nullify your light attack of yours. If I didn't have the skill, then that attack of yours would have seriously injured me. And for that very reason, you have my praise." Renard, who was leaning on a tree, looked down to his still bleeding stomach. "I guess this is for me. We never stood a chance against you, huh? If only I had surrendered, then none of this would have happened. Please do me a favor and spare Lady Hinata's life. That is my dying wish." "That decision is entirely up to my lord. If he wants to spare her, then good. If not, then so be it," Shinon told him before she began walking away. "So this is it. This is where I die. I only wish that I had confirmed if what the 7 days clergy had said to Hinata, working with Demon Lord Rimiru, was true. It couldn't be true. If they were working together, why would she be fighting Demon Lord Rimiru right now? Now that I think of it, why did the 7 days clergy send me here when they knew that the monster nation? I could clearly stand no chance against it. I think that someone is going behind the scenes, and Nata and I were used by the 7 days clergy. Oh, how I wish I could warn the others, but I can't move nor can I speak anymore. I guess it's time to go," Renard thought to himself. He looked up to the sky and breathed slowly before closing his eyes and breathed his last breath. He died while leaning against a tree as Shinon left the area. With Soye, if there was one word to use to describe the expression of Litis and Fritz at the moment, it would be shocked and terrified just after both of them pulled Soye to a part of the forest. He vanished, and the whole area was suddenly covered in darkness. It felt like they were trapped inside a giant cocoon of darkness. Not long after that, many spikes made of pure darkness began to appear from all directions and attack them relentlessly. Both Fritz and Litis have been doing everything in their power to fend off the onslaught of spikes, but they were reaching their limit. There's no end to these spikes. I don't know if I can continue, Litis said to Fritz with an exhausted tone. Don't give up yet, Litis. We can't fall here. We have to combine our powers together to dispel the darkness, Fritz said with determination. Nice try, but I'm always one step ahead of you two. Was the voice they heard before the string made of iron bound them together. Both Fritz and Litis tried to break the strings, but they discovered they was a lot thicker than before. This is bad, Fritz. We can't get free, Litis said while struggling in her bind. Tell me about it. I'm using both my spirit armor and full magic tools, but the string still won't break. My strings are the toughest strings out there, second only to Lord Rimiru's. Weak humans like yourselves can't break it. And besides, I've already won this fight, Soye said to them while revealing himself. Fritz heard what Soye said and got confused. What do you mean you have won? We are still standing, and we... Sadly, he couldn't finish what he wanted to say because he got impelled from all sides by the shadow spikes. Fritz coughed out blood and collapsed in the string that was binding him. He died instantly. Litis, who saw all this and shouted in sorrow, Fritz! She cried bitterly and looked at the expressionless Soye with rage. You accursed monster! I vow that I will have revenge for what you have done. That would have been threatening if you had the power to back it up. Sadly, you don't. If you want to blame someone for the tragedy, then blame yourself for coming to pick a fight with us. That my lord has given us an order to spare no one who is hostile with us, and I intend to carry out my orders. Goodbye, and may you reflect on your foolishness in your next life, Soye said to her before he sent shadow spikes to her, which impelled her. Liz, with her last strength, looked up from her bind and saw Sonya walking out of the area after he dispelled the darkness. I guess this is it. Nata did warn us not to pick a fight with the new demon lord, but we didn't listen. Ow, look at me, die alone. If only I wasn't arrogant. I just wish that in my next life I would become stronger and less arrogant, she thought before she breathed her last breath. Soye, who was finished with his job, began to move to where Rimiru was fighting Hinata. If I hurry, I might be able to catch the fight of Lord Rimiru before anyone else, he said to himself before he disappeared inside a shadow. With Bimiru, Aranad and Bacchus were seriously having a difficult time with Bimiru. They have been fighting and giving it their all against Bimiru by simply shrugging off their attacks like it was nothing but annoyance. Aranad was holding his sword and breathing heavily, while his body was covered in burn wounds, and Bacchus, who was holding his demon-killing axe, was no different. This is getting us nowhere. We have tried almost every move we have, but he hasn't taken any damage at all, Bacchus said with irritation. I know how you feel, but don't lose hope. He may be a subordinate of Demon Lord Rimiru, but he's certainly not unbeatable. I will have to bring out my secret move in order to win, Arnaud said to him. Bimiru, who was casually observing them, decided to speak. I told you not to bother trying whatever attacks you have, because it will not work. My flames will burn whatever it is you throw at me. If you ain't gonna attack me, I'll simply end both your lives. Don't get so cocky, jerk. Batches shouted before he leapt it to Beamar with his axe raised. Beamar saw Batches approaching him with his axe raised. He admits that his axe is annoying if it actually hits him, since the axe is designed to slay demons and monsters. If it was the old him, he would have been very worried, but this is a new him, way above the two in power. To demonstrate, he brought his blade, which was clad in black flame, and used it to block Batches' axe. But it didn't stop there. Batches was severed in two the moment it made contact with Beamaru's sword. Batches' axe was severed in two, for the record. The force that Beamaru applied to his sword not only cut through Batches' axe, but also sent him crashing through multiple trees until he crashed to the ground. Batches! Arnaud shouted before he looked at Beamaru with anger. He will pay for that. His discharge of a mass of light from his palm and headed straight for Beamaru, but before it reached him, it was burned away in midair by an unseen force. Beamaru looked at him in anger. I told you that there is nothing my flames cannot incinerate. That is my conviction. Oh, yeah? Try incinerating this, you jerk. Arnaud shouted at him. He brought his sword, which was clad in his fighting spirit and was glowing 5 colors. Take my special move. 5 colors, Spirit Virtue's sword. With a slash, Arnaud's sword runs along the ground in a line, heading straight for Beamaru. All the paladins have mastered the art of combining their spirit elements into fighting spirit. Each night all have one spirit element, and sometimes they have 2. But Arnaud was blessed with 5 spirit attributes. He was converging his 5 elements into fighting spirit and cladding it to his sword. He was able to develop a special technique that can cut through anything or anyone with ease. This special technique is why Arnaud was called the strongest holy knight. Also, using his spirits, Arnaud was traveling at a speed that transcends the speed of sound. The strike was clad in holy attributes and was heading to Beamaru. Arnaud was convinced that he was going to cut down Beamaru with this strike, but at the last second, Beamaru brought his sword and that he has been charging with his mana and intercepted Arnaud's strike. When the two swords clashed, the holy elements that surrounded Arnaud's sword disappeared. No, more like it burned off. Arnaud had his jaw wide open. After seeing his best skill stopped with such ease, Beamaru didn't give him any time to recover. With a huge burst of flame and a little bit of strength, he sent Arnaud, who was still clashing his sword with him, flying with a lot of flames. Arnaud was taken off guard and was sent flying until he hit his back at a tree, slid down to the ground. Lee looked at himself. He had several burns on his body, and his right arm has been completely incinerated. He quickly looked at Beamaru. How did you block my sword? He asked the question that puzzled him most. Beamaru gave him a look that covered how stupid Arnaud is for asking that question. Didn't I tell you this before? My conviction is that there is nothing my flames cannot burn through. Arnaud had no word to say after hearing that. His best and most prided attack burned away like it was nothing. This was beyond ridiculous and frightening. Before he could respond, Batches jumped through the air and fired multiple holy cannon at Beamaru. He did this to buy time for himself to escape with Arnaud, but his attacks burned off before it could reach Beamaru. Don't think I didn't see you there just now. I was simply waiting to see what you would do, Bimaru said to Batches. Batches landed next to the downed Arnott. Must flee Arnott. This monster is very much stronger than we are. We are fools for thinking that we could challenge the monster nation. We just look at the state we are in. We have no choice. We have no chance at all. We must flee. I agree with you, but you can't take me. I would only burden you. You must escape without me, Arnott said to Batches weakly. Before Batches could respond, Bimaru said something that made them both lose all hope. Do you really think that I will let any of you escape? I have been only playing around in order to test my new powers, but now a huge crimson aura covered Bimaru, which made him look even more frightening. It's time to get serious. After he said that, he stretched out his right hand, and a huge cocoon of fire appeared and covered Arnott and Batches. Repent on the foolish of challenging the great Rimiru of challenging great Rimiru in the afterlife. With that, a huge explosion of black flames consumed both Arnott and Batches in mere seconds. The attack happened so fast that both of them died without knowing what on earth killed them. After that was done, Bimaru began to walk away from the scene. Some time has passed, and Shinon jumped to the cliff where they were standing before with Rimiru. I'm the first to arrive. Keep telling yourself that, a voice sounded behind her. She turned around and saw Soye standing behind her. When did you get here, Soye? I've been standing here the whole time. My shadow was the one who did all the fighting, Soye answered her. Just then, Bimaru landed on the cliff. Looks like I'm the last to finish. Yeah, you are. Was your opponent strong or something? Shinon asked him. They were definitely strong for human standards, but they were nothing compared to the new me. Anyway, how is Lord Rimiru's fight going? Bimaru asked. Lord Rimiru is still not taking both of them seriously. But that is about to change soon, Soye answered. Both Bimaru and Soye concentrated on the fight that was happening below the cliff they were standing on. This fight took place between their lord Rimiru Tempest and their leader of the Paladins, Hinata, and her partner Sare. This is a battle that should not be missed. It will determine the fate of mankind in the future. Note from author. So, for those who feel sorry for the deaths of the Paladins, don't worry. I still have great plans for them in the future. I won't spoil anything, but trust me, I don't worry. Oh yeah, can someone please tell me Hinata's last name in the comments? Thanks for reading, folks. See you in the next chapter. That's all for today's video. Don't forget to subscribe today to become one of my domestic listeners. Goodbye and peace out, everyone.